Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch the show. As I always say, everything I'm saying is total speculation based on very little information. If I got to know them better, I'm sure I would have a much more robust understanding. So just always take that into consideration as I'm commenting on it. Usually what I'm doing is I'm using the show as a jumping off point so we can talk about other kinds of things that are more general. All right, let's get to the show.
I don't see the point in arguing with my parents because it just doesn't go anywhere. I don't know. I am trying to dedicate my time to Julia in the morning, which it's new, and I feel stuck in the middle between Julia and my parents.
Right, stuck in the middle. Now, we just heard what he said. He says, I don't see the point in arguing because I don't see that going anywhere. Okay, arguing, for sure. But say something. Say something. Now, again, in order to say something, you have to be in touch with something. And I'm guessing that he's not. Now, what I've experienced with people who are like the hypothesis I have is that they don't know what they don't know. That they don't know they're not in touch. You know, as a 27-year-old man, you would think that you have all the regular 27-year-old maturities. You're able to drive a car, you have a job, you're able to have a romantic relationship, you're able to do the things that 27-year-olds do. And you would assume that you have all the capacities emotionally. But we don't know what we don't know, and we rarely talk about this connection with the self. You all out there, I might be the only person who has ever even said this idea to you. Now, some of you might be clinicians or are clinicians and have thought about it. Some of you have been in therapy or just naturally know about this sort of thing. But what I've experienced with people when I've worked with them, and I start talking this way to them, I'm like, after I assess them over many weeks, I'll explain what I've been explaining to them, and they'll say, oh, that explains a lot of things about me. I didn't know that I didn't know that. I thought that I was in touch with those things, but I guess now that you say that, yeah, I'm really not in touch with those things. And that really scares me. I don't know what to do. It can be very scary. And even when you start to approach it, people might run away from it because it is very scary. So it's possible that he doesn't even know he's not in connection with something. And so when you don't know, you're just looking for ways of framing your reality. And the way that he seems to frame his reality is, there's really no point in arguing with the parents. But from the outside looking in, what I might say is, he doesn't even know where to begin with arguing with his parents because he doesn't know who he is or what he wants or how he feels about anything. But the way that he consciously sees that is, there's really no point in arguing with them. But again, we just hear more iteration of this leaf in the wind stuff, or this ghost self, as I've been calling it, of him saying he's stuck in the middle. It's really, I feel really bad for him. I feel bad for the whole family. I suspect that the parents have been traumatized a lot in their childhoods as well. I would not be surprised, given their behavior, if that wasn't the case. So I just feel bad for everybody.
Maybe we talk?
Okay.
Tell me what you feel.
Feels like everybody's kind of scolding me. I feel like I'm in trouble, and everybody's like, you need to do this, you need to do that.
So, wonderful question from Julia. How do you feel? I'm guessing that for Julia, she was making a lot of assumptions up until this point that his body language or some of the things he's been saying indicate how he feels, that he feels similar to how she feels. But now he's indicated some things that she is now questioning, like, wait, maybe he's not on the same page as me. And so I want to yell at him, and I'm really hurt by him. But instead, I'm just going to start off the question in a very open-ended, how do you feel? And then we hear from him saying exactly in line with what I've been saying, is like, from his point of view, the whole thing, this whole thing has nothing to do with what the bigger picture is in terms of, like, what do I want and what does Julia want? How are we going to build a life together? This whole thing is completely eclipsed by his desire to make everyone happy. That is the only thing on his mind. And so he's very much focused on that. And that might be the entirety of his attention because that's all he is able to concentrate on given the amount of traumas he's been through. So I don't know. Let's continue watching.
and it's just getting tiring. When you're not here, I manage to get things done.
So that's an unfortunate narrative that he's saying, I don't know what's happening right now. I'm totally caught between a rock and a hard place. And all I can say is that before you came, my life was pretty normal and pretty okay. Now, what a lot of us might say looking on would be, okay, yeah, you weren't fighting with your parents, but you were doing everything that they were telling you to do, which I'm guessing is not what you want to do. So it's an unfortunate development, but again, makes total sense if he's not in connect. Because let's just imagine, hypothetically, that he does love Julia and wants to be with Julia. Because we don't even know if that's true. Because when you're not in touch with yourself, you might just go along with romance thinking that it's the right thing to do because it kind of coincides with how you're feeling on the inside, but it might not be fully connected. And, you know, the decision to fall in love with someone or to be with someone or to marry someone, you have to do a lot of checking in. Like, wait, is this the person I want? Does this person make me feel? Anyway, so let's imagine, though, that he does love her deep down. Well, what he would probably say in this situation would be, look, I love you and I want to be with you. And my parents, I really want to please them too. And I just don't know what to do here. Okay, so that is a little bit more in line and still, you know, a little on the side of trying to please everyone. But at least it acknowledges, like, well, deep down, fundamentally, on the foundation level, Julia, I want to be with you. But there's this other stuff that's happening. But that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, all I know is that when you're here, my life is worse. Yikes.
After working, you come back and you don't need to stay with me? When we stay together? When we have time for stay only you and me?
We have the rest of our lives after married.
Okay. You think after marriage
I
change?
like you.
Right. There are so many questions. Now, it's possible that that's a viable plan of like, look, while we're under my parents' roof because we have to live here because of finances, we're just going to have to play their game. I'm just telling you, it's too hard to push back. But as soon as we get married and we move out, which he did not say, he said just married, then things will go better. You know, I could see a scenario where that would be rational, but that's not what he's saying. He's saying, well, we just need to get married. And I would want to know more. Maybe he'll explain more about that. What do you mean married? Do you mean married and stay here? Because I can't imagine that things are going to change if we are married and stay here. So it's just such a confusion around that. When is the moving out period? And now I'm wondering, because, you know, from the beginning as I've been watching this, I've been wondering, like, I don't understand, what's the budget problem here? And I've been throwing out these, like, because we heard little details that he could have moved out, but he didn't want to because presumably he said he wanted to save up for a fancy wedding and reception. And what everyone is saying watching the show is, have a cheap wedding and reception, move out, because it is not going to work if you're going to stay there. But in lieu of everything that's been happening, we have to wonder if Brandon ever actually wanted to move out, if he ever actually planned on doing that. And he was only kind of intimating that maybe that was at some point in the future because he knows that's what Julia needs to hear. I don't know, but there's a possibility there.
Before marriage, we need to live together.
Uh-huh.
But we not live together. This is like strange. Very strange. We live together, but I not feel we live together.
I was always worried that adding Julia to the farm would ruin the dynamic of this family, and it kind of has. My parents are upset with me. She's upset with me. She doesn't want to take part in helping with the animals. My parents want both of us to embrace it, and her to embrace it especially. It's just not all working.
So again, I'm going to rewind it. Listen to the way he just told that story. At no point did he say what he wanted, which would make sense, right? For him to say, well, what I want is this. Plenty of other people on the show have that ability to say, well, this is what I want. We're not getting any indication of that. Let's rewind and listen back.
I was always worried that adding Julia to the farm would ruin the dynamic of this family, and it kind of has. My parents are upset with me. She's upset with me. She doesn't want to take part in helping with the animals. My parents want both of us to embrace it, and her to embrace it especially. It's just not all working like we wanted.
It's not all working like we wanted. There's nothing in there about what he wants. And without that part of the equation, this just cannot work. He has to know who he is and what he wants in order for this system to work well. Mainly for Julia. Julia wants to know, do you love me? Do you want to be with me? What is our plan? What do you want? What do I want? Let's work together on this. And without that being, with just it being a mist, a ghost that she is grasping at, I'm guessing that Julia is going to have a breaking point. I wonder. Anyway, let's continue watching.
Try and work with them a little bit. Give it a couple days, maybe.
I try for you, Brandon.
That's all that he has to say, is we'll get married and we'll move out at some point. I wish we had more details as to what that timeline looked like. And then just do what my parents say and everything will be fine. But it won't be fine because Julia doesn't want to do what they say. So anyway, let's continue watching.
You and I are going to go and we're going to rearrange. We're going to take the hay bales from the top this morning and we're going to get them down in the bottom.
Last night, things got really tense with my parents. They say I'm spending too much time with Julia in the mornings, that I'm not pulling my own weight.
Another possibility here, in addition to all the other speculations that I've thrown out, all the other hypotheses, is that the parents are really desperate for closeness and attachments, which most people are. And they really, really want to retain Brandon as an attachment figure, which of course makes sense as well. Now, of course, us looking on would say, you can absolutely retain that even though he moves out and marries someone else. He might live in another town nearby and you can certainly still have a loving, attached relationship with him. He doesn't need to live on the farm. You don't need to control the girlfriend. You can have both. He can have his freedom and you can have the attachment. But given people's past traumas, it can make them believe that it's all or nothing. That unless you are 100% under my control and in my world, then you are 100% out of my world and I will never have access to you. And that is terrifying to me, especially given my traumas in my past. And I will fight tooth and nail for this relationship because I need it deep down. I need this relationship desperately. So that could be another part of it as well for the parents, that subconsciously they are terrified of him getting married to someone else and moving out. And that is informing a lot of their attitudes as they navigate this relationship.
Relationship with my parents has never been like this before. To see my parents that upset, it really bothers me. So they asked me to get up early and do farm chores with them.
All right, we just heard a little detail that he says he's never seen his parents that upset before. That is surprising to me, given how easy it was for them to get upset. Again, given what we've seen on the show. If we heard from the parents, maybe we would have more understanding of their position. But from what they've shown on the show. But that is surprising. I would find that to be very strange. So there's two possibilities there. One is that he's right and that they rarely get upset. So in that situation, I could be completely wrong regarding my hypotheses about them being over-controlling of him and keeping him at a younger age developmentally. And that his childhood is great and that the parents have been great. And there's just something about this situation that causes them to get very upset. The other possibility is that they have been upset like this throughout his life, and he either doesn't want to admit that to himself or to the cameras for fear of them getting upset, or he has blocked that out of his mind, and he only realizes it now because it's now caught on camera, and Julia is observing, and the camera people are observing, and now he has to pay attention to it because other people are asking him questions about it. Who knows? There's just so many questions that I would want to ask if I was treating this family, but I'm not.
And you, I think, are going to get
As
with.
soon as she's up.
Julia agreed to try and help me today, but she hates working on the farm, and it kills me to think that she doesn't want any part of working on the farm with me.
Weird. Is that weird to you? That was weird to me. Because he, the kid, Brandon, the adult kid, is now saying exactly what the dad was saying. But we haven't heard him say that before. Before, Brandon seemed to be saying that he was on Julia's side and that he wasn't going to be pressuring her to work on the farm and that he just hoped that everyone would get along. But now he is saying exactly, word for word, for the most part, what the dad has been saying. It's really disappointing that she doesn't like the farm. Let's re-listen to that, because was that weird to you? Because that sounded different than what I thought was inside Brandon. But of course, there's a possibility that Brandon doesn't know what he wants and he just adopts attitudes of people that he's trying to please. But let's rewind that.
It kills me to think that she doesn't want any part of working on the farm with me.
You sleep well?
Yeah.
Slept late.
Okay, so the four of them are going to talk again. Let's see what happens. I'm guessing it's going to go badly, but fingers crossed.
Would you like a cup of tea before you go outside?
I think it's too late for that. We got to get going. Sorry.
All right.
Well, let's go.
I try today for Brandon because I promise. I promise I try maybe little time.
It's,
All right, so it sounds to me like she is saying, okay, fine, I'll try this, but I might be kind of done with this situation. That's what it kind of sounds like to me, but I don't know. Let's continue watching.
Care some animals. From that point, I get ready for work. As a pest control technician, I work from about 8 to 5 every day. Go home, take care of more animals.
You got to understand, all this is all yours one day. All of this. Would you want to give all this up?
So this is bizarre because I was under the impression that everyone was under the understanding that he was moving out soon, like in a couple weeks. That appears to be not the case. That at least the dad, and I would not doubt that Brandon has not pushed back on this idea, even though in his heart he might want to. Hard to know what Brandon wants at this point. That the parents have been saying, yeah, you're going to stay here with the farm. Julia's going to come to the farm. So it explains a lot, right? Because from the beginning, we're like, why are they trying to make Julia work on the farm this much? That's so strange. It is possible that the parents were working on the assumption that Julia wasn't just coming as a visitor. She was coming to stay for the rest of her life. And if Julia is going to take on the mantle of the matriarch of the family farm, then yeah, she's going to have to like the farm and get into the farm and get used to the animals for sure. But this is interesting. Let's watch what Brandon says here. Will he indicate at all what he wants on the inside? Right. So par for the course, just blank. Now, one way to look at that is he's afraid to confront the dad. Another way of looking at it is there's nothing down there. That he's just like, okay, that's what dad wants, then great, that's what I want.
Julia is certainly having an effect on Brandon. I mean, he's certainly in love with her, but, you know, he's changing for her, not for himself.
Well, now that's a statement. That is quite a statement. He's changing for her, not himself. I would guess that if I had time to get to know this family, and Brandon in particular, that I would say he doesn't know himself enough to change for himself. He's trying to change for you. He's trying to stay the same for you, and he's trying to change for Julia, and he can't do both. And he doesn't even know what he wants. It's just really sad.
I just think you need to think about that real carefully.
My parents have built, this great farm, this great home for me. I absolutely appreciate it. And I love the farm, but it was never my dream. Julia is my dream, and since I met Julia, I want to go off and search for what will make us happy.
So I believe him when he says that. There's a possibility, and again, I'd have to get to know him, that what's happening is that he has an emerging sense of who he is, that he's starting to get into contact with that a little bit. And he's noticing that some of the things down there do not coincide with what the parents want for him. But he doesn't know how to push back. He doesn't know how to look down and really figure out what he wants and how he feels. He doesn't feel safe to push back. And so he's bringing this powerful element into the situation so that maybe Julia can save him and pull him away and, like a rescuer or something. There's definitely a possibility that that's what's happening. I don't know, but let's continue watching. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of others because we all deserve it. We really, really do.